Hi everyone, Effie here. Today we're kicking off day 2 of our October 2017 release. For our October release, we have 11 new stamps to share with you. For day 2, we're sharing 4 new designs. A lot of these designs from this release are designed by our very own DT member Undi Jung. There are some really gorgeous florals, so I hope you'll head over to our blog to check out all the new goodies that we have in store for you. Everything will be available for pre-order tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. on our site. So I started off this card by white heat embossing our Wishful Rose onto an A2 card base. Actually, no, it's not card base, it's watercolor paper because we're going to be watercoloring with color burst today. Before I add any pigment to my watercolor paper, I make sure to wet the area that I plan to paint with some clean water, and then I start dropping in bits of paint. In painting terms, this is called the wet on wet technique, and I find that I get a better blend with my colors when I use this technique because you're dropping paint onto a surface that's already wet, so when that pigment touches the wet paper, it kind of just blends right in. It's not a seamless blend, and that is why I take a second clean brush. The brush that I use is a fine tip Pentel aqua brush, but any fine tip paintbrush you have will work. And that is why I take this fine tip brush. After I drop in the pigment, I take the fine tip brush and I just blend that color out. You can see that I'm kind of experimenting with the intensity of my colors here. I originally put down the first layer of my color and I get this really light pink. I'm using Peony color burst for my large floral head today. So I get this light pink when I put that initial layer of color down, but I wanted a little bit more of an intense color. So while the inner portions of my petals are still wet, I drop in a little bit more of my Peony color burst, and you can always add more color to your watercolor painting. It's a very versatile medium. If you want more of a vibrant look to your painting and you find that your paper is already dry, you can just go over the area that you want to add a little bit more color to. You can just wet it with a little bit of clean water and then start dropping in a little bit more color, more concentrated color, and then you get that more vibrant look to whatever you want to paint. And this is because our Wishful Rose is a rather large stamp. That floral head is rather large, so it's not going to be easy for you to paint the entire floral head all in one shot. So you might have to go back and rework some areas, but I encourage you to experiment and test out the wet on wet watercoloring technique and see, what works for you. Anything that you do, you're going to have to practice a little bit. The results may not be the best or what you're looking for the first time around, but I do encourage you to practice because I think the end result, you may be surprised at what you get because when watercolor dries, you really do get a beautiful result. After I finished painting my rose head, I started painting in the foliage, and I'm doing some loose watercoloring here. I'm using a combination of sap green and I believe it's a lemon yellow color burst, but I think a little bit of yellow ochre got mixed in with that. But I kind of just went with it. I don't really pay attention too much to what the exact colors are in my palette anymore. I just use what's on hand. I'm OCD about a lot of things, but sometimes when it comes to watercolor painting, especially when I'm doing loose watercolor painting, I just kind of go with it because in the end it all works out. So after I finished painting my panel, I set it aside to dry and then I stamped the sentiment, which is from the same Wishful Rose set in our Noir Dye Ink, and I use my Mini Misty to help me position my sentiment so that I don't stamp it crooked because I have been known to do that. So after I finished stamping the sentiment, I adhered my panel onto a side folding A2 card base, but actually before I did that, I trimmed my panel just a little bit, and then lastly I embellished my card with some clear dewdrops in 7 and 5 millimeter sizes. This is a great stamp to practice coloring on because it's rather large and it's also one big easy stamp to just kind of heat emboss and go and color because all the masking work is done for you with the cluster. So thanks for watching and I hope you'll check out the rest of our October 2017 release.